you're going to see CDPs act more as the control layer for AI execution, especially as AI systems become more autonomous. Then you're going to see CDP's job shift to be more of a guardrail. It's really activation. I mean, the most missed step here is connecting the AI outcome or AI output to the customer experience channel. A lot of companies spend their focus on, training models, testing different models, fine-tuning models, but then the results aren't flowing back to the customer-facing channels. And without the activation piece, AI is basically just an expensive science project. So a retailer, for example, may predict churn accurately, but if the insight isn't used to trigger some sort of a retention offer back to the customer, that insight is pretty much just overhead. And that trigger has to be done in real time if you think about it, because if you wait a week or two to make an offer based on the data, it may already be too late. I think McKinsey did a study back in 2023 and found that only 15% of companies using AI had a meaningful bottom line impact, mainly because insights are siloed or reach the customer too late. Without orchestration, especially real-time orchestration, even the best models have no business impact or value. Yeah, clean data is relative. And I think more important than clean data is usable data or, relevant data. Not sure if you remember, but like 10 years ago, everybody was talking about big data this, big data that. There were like big data commercials during Super Bowl here in the US. And the premise was really simple: collect everything you can and then figure out what to do with it later. Because a lot of times you don't necessarily know what your use cases are ahead of time. So just collect everything and then figure it out later. Now, the reality is most of those big data projects ended up failing. And the number one reason is because there was really no use case driving those big data projects. They were kind of like, tech first, purpose last projects. AI is not going to be any different. If you don't think about the use case, they're going to fail as well. So you have to start with the use case, and then that's going to help determine what type of data you're going to need. For example, if you're running some sort of an AI project around product recommendation, you're going to be interested in data that's tied to the product performance. Things like, products viewed, products added to cart, products purchased, maybe even the different campaigns that brought the traffic associated with those product purchases. But you're not going to be interested in data tied to people going to the career section of the website or the investor section of the website. That's just going to be noise, right? So relevant data is number one, data that's filtered and without the noise. Number two, it's data that's timely. For example, what articles I read 2 years ago are completely irrelevant as far as content recommendation to me is concerned. Number three, it's going to be data that's consented because you need to be in compliance. And then, finally, it's data that's contextualized or has the proper semantic clarity. For example, just saying that the traffic came from Google doesn't really mean much because that could be Google paid or organic. So you're going to have the proper context here. And again, starting with the use case is going to allow organizations and teams to properly contextualize the data and then have a successful AI outcome. I can think of two bottlenecks in this area. One is process, the other one is technology. So I'll start with technology. If you look at the CDP market as an example, right, or the CDP technology, a CDP has to, number one, collect data, number two, process the data, and then number three, activate or orchestrate the data, right? Now, most CDPs can collect the data in real time, right? And everybody claims real time. But the reality is when it comes to processing and delivering the data or orchestrating the data, that's typically delayed. Some are delayed by 15 minutes, some are delayed by, an hour or two. Now, that may be good enough if you're dealing with just static lists, right? Static list of customers that you want to retarget and so forth. But when you're dealing with dynamic data, let's say a website experience, that's not going to be good enough. The average session duration of a website is probably about 4 or 5 minutes, right? So if you're waiting 15 minutes to activate that data, I'm already gone, right? That's way too late. So being real time really has been it has to be a focus when you're dealing with dynamic data. And that's something that we're really proud of at Tealium because being real time has been one of the architectural focus of the Tealium platform since day one. The other bottleneck is really process, where the output can happen in real time, but organizations don't give full autonomy to the systems and still have some sort of a human control or human oversight. As an example, I think one example is the banking industry, especially here in the US, where transaction fraud can be detected in real time. But because of regulations, there still has to be some sort of a human oversight or human check, right? And that kind of obviously delays the system. So Forrester, I think, did a study back in 24 and found that about 61% of business leaders uh, cited internal governance as the top reason why AI insights aren't acted on immediately. And that's a huge bottleneck. So really, it's obviously comes down to ultimately technology and process. I see a little bit of both. On one hand, it will replace some of the narrow purpose tools like I don't know, rule-based or manual A/B testing tools or optimization tools. But to be totally honest with you, I mean, these tools kind of play a small part in the modern data stack today anyway, right? So I don't think that's going to be a big shift ultimately. I think the biggest potential is that, for one thing, LLMs are really good at creating a whole new conversational channel for brands, right? And if you go back in history, like just 20, 30 years ago, if you didn't have a website or if you failed to build a website back in the late 90s, you lost a generation of new customers. Then in 2010s, if you didn't build a mobile app, you lost a whole new generation of new customers, right? And these are all new channels that were added to a business. These channels didn't necessarily or didn't completely replace the older ones, but they complemented them. And then they gave customers choice in terms of how they want to deal with the brand. I myself, I have two adult daughters um, who have obviously bank accounts. I don't think they've ever been to their local bank's, branch in their lives. They do everything through their app. Their mom, on the other hand, does everything pretty much through the branch. So it's really about choice ultimately. Now, with LLMs or AI agents, you can really start building a whole new layer where people can interact with the brand through conversation and just natural language. And that's going to create a whole new way of how customers interact with brands. Just one example is, let's say, in the future, I could totally see this where I'm leaving work, going back to home. I'm in my car and I'm having a conversation with my local groceries AI agents like, hey, I'm on my way home. Give me a pound of oranges, 2 pounds of apples, and maybe some cheese, some brie cheese. And they already have my, payment information. The clerk will just package everything, put it ready, and then I'll just go pick it up and just go home, right? I could totally see that as a possibility in the future with conversational, AI agents. I see a few roles, for a couple. First, you have some CDPs that act more as like data aggregation hubs. I think they're going to be replaced. They're going to go away. They're going to be replaced by just, real-time orchestration engines that can feed data directly into the AI systems with the right semantic layer and context. The second is you're going to see CDPs act more as the control layer for AI execution, especially as AI systems become more autonomous. Then you're going to see CDP's job shift to be more of a guardrail, right? Because you want to make sure that these systems don't hallucinate or don't generate the wrong outcome. That means making sure that number one, the data that's fed into the system is consented and contextualized, but also that the AI outcomes and activations are complying with the proper rules and regulations. So think of CDP in the future playing as, the role of a traffic cop, both into and out of the AI systems.